Okay, so the federal government has this plan, right? It could slash 77.4% of Arizona's Colorado River water. And get this, that's not some crazy worst-case scenario. It's not a climate prediction for way off in the future. Nope, it's an actual, official option written into a draft environmental impact statement that the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation put out on January 9th, 2026. It's a documented contingency, basically a legal guillotine. This plan would force a state of over 7 million people to live on less than a quarter of the river water it was literally built on. I mean, the Central Arizona Project, that 336-mile canal, serves over 5 million people there. That's more than 80% of Arizona's population. And here's the kicker nobody is talking about. This isn't a negotiating tactic. It's not some empty threat to make them play ball. This is just the straightforward, brutal execution of a legal contract Arizona signed with its eyes wide open 8 years ago. A contract that put Arizona first on a water cutoff list. A contract that says when the river runs dry, Arizona feels the pain. First, and for a long time, exclusively. So, what happens when a deal made in 1968 crashes into the reality of 2026? What happens when a state finally has to pay the price for its survival? Here's the number you really need to remember. 1968. That's when the trap was set. It wasn't malicious, not evil. It was just the cold, hard logic of political power. For decades, Arizona watched California grow into this giant, sucking up Colorado River water with all these canals and infrastructure Arizona could only dream about. Arizona had a legal right to a share of that water, a right from the 1922 Colorado River Compact. But a right on paper isn't water in a pipe. To get its share from the river, across hundreds of miles of desert. And into the growing cities of Phoenix and Tucson, Arizona needed an aqueduct. Something absolutely massive. It would be called the Central Arizona Project, or CAP, and it was going to cost billions. Arizona couldn't build it alone. It needed federal funding. It needed Congress to approve it. And to get that, it needed the support of the most powerful state delegation in Washington, California. California's congressional group, which had already built its own water empire, held all the cards. They'd support the CAP. They'd let federal money flow into the Arizona desert. But they wanted a price, a non-negotiable condition. It was written into Section 301 of the Colorado River Basin Project Act, a sentence that would, half a century later, become an existential threat. The act made the water rights for the brand new Central Arizona Project explicitly junior to California's gigantic, long-established water rights. Junior, meaning subordinate. Last in line. Senator Carl Hayden of Arizona, who had fought for the CAP his whole career, knew exactly what he was agreeing to. He championed that bill. He got it through Congress. It was a devil's bargain, trading long-term security for immediate survival. Infrastructure now, risk later. On September 30th, 1968, President Lyndon B. Johnson signed the act into law. Arizona got its project. Construction crews started digging a man-made river through the Sonoran Desert, and the clock started ticking on a time bomb that wouldn't go off for another 50 years. Now, this isn't a story about California stealing Arizona's water. That's a total misunderstanding of what's happening. This is a story about California using the exact senior rights that Arizona formally and legally gave them in 1968. It's a story about a contract being enforced, a signature on a piece of paper that now has the power to dewater a modern American state. The law is the law, and the math is just what it is. Chuck Cullum, who runs the Upper Colorado River Commission, put it really simply: math is indisputable. The water that was promised on paper back in 1922 just doesn't exist in the river today. The original Colorado River Compact was signed during a period that was unusually wet. It gave 7.5 million acre-feet to the upper basin states and another 7. 5 million to the lower basin. That math was wrong from the beginning. For the last 26 years, a historic megadrought, made worse by a warming climate, has really exposed that original mistake. The reservoirs, Lake Powell and Lake Mead, that were built to help during a dry year or two, are now just draining away. And when they drain, that 1968 contract kicks in. The fine print becomes the main story. Arizona goes first. To understand how these cutoffs work, you need to know about the tier system. It's not some vague drought announcement. It's a super precise system tied to one number, the water level of Lake Mead, the biggest reservoir in the U.S. The rules were made official in the 2007 Interim Shortage Guidelines, then updated with the 2019 Drought Contingency Plan. When the lake drops below certain trigger elevations, mandatory cuts are automatically enforced by the Bureau of Reclamation. It's like a staircase, going down. The first step was called Tier 0. That name is kind of a bureaucratic joke. It sounds like nothing, right? A starting point. A placeholder. But Tier 0 was actually a huge cut of 192,000 acre-feet of water. An acre-foot is about 326,000 gallons, enough for 2 or 3 households for a year. So Tier 0 wasn't zero at all. It was a loss of 62 billion gallons of water, all of it taken from Arizona. California's cut under Tier 0? Nothing. Not one drop. Then came the first ever formal shortage declaration. On August 16, 2021, the feds declared a Tier 1 shortage. Lake Mead had dropped below 1,075 feet above sea level. Arizona's cut immediately jumped to 512,000 acre-feet. Let's actually think about what that means. 512,000 acre-feet is over 167 billion gallons of water. It's about 18% of Arizona's entire Colorado River supply. Just gone. Instantly, that cut was so deep it forced the state to completely shut off water deliveries to central Arizona farmers, totally wrecking an entire agricultural area. And California's mandatory cut under Tier 1? Still zero. The staircase keeps going down. Tier 2A kicks in when Lake Mead drops below 1,050 feet. Arizona's cut gets even bigger, to 592,000 acre-feet. California's cut? Still zero. Tier 2B happens at 1,045 feet. Arizona loses 640,000 acre-feet. California finally starts to feel a tiny bit of pain here, but Arizona is still taking almost all of the reduction. And then there's Tier 3, below 1,025 feet. Arizona's supply is slashed by 720,000 acre-feet, nearly 26% of its total share, wiped out by a single elevation number. This isn't a negotiation. It's a pre-written legal formula for sacrifice, and the formula is written in Arizona's blood, and this part should honestly make you gasp. Those tiers aren't just theoretical anymore. We're actually living them. Right now, today, as of July 17th, 2026, the water level in Lake Mead is only 1,042.07 feet. That's not just in Tier 2 territory, that's deep inside it. The lake is 186. 93 feet below its full capacity. It's barely a shadow of what it used to be. On July 28, 2022, the lake hit its all-time record low of 1,040.58 feet, a number that honestly shocked water managers all over the West. That record is about to be broken, too. On July 15, 2026, the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation put out a new projection. Based on a terrible 2026 winter snowpack, the Bureau forecasts that Lake Mead will break its all-time record low by the end of this August. This August. In just a few weeks, the whole system is just collapsing in real time. That's not even the scariest number in the report. The same federal projection shows where the lake is heading. By June of 2028, the Bureau's model shows Lake Mead plummeting to 1,009.69 feet. Read that number really carefully. 1,009 feet. That's completely off the chart of the current tier system. It's even below Tier 3. It's a depth no one planning this ever seriously thought we'd be facing this decade. It's a number that gets really close to what they call dead pool. The point where water can't flow past Hoover Dam by gravity anymore. The point where the river, for all practical purposes, just stops. This crisis isn't on its way. It's here. These numbers aren't warnings. They're like reports from the scene of a crash. What makes this more than just a story about a contract and a dying lake is the human drama playing out right now. And it's a drama of incredibly unfair treatment. While Arizona is legally forced to give up hundreds of thousands of acre-feet of water without any compensation, California is getting paid. Let me say that again. California, the state with the senior rights, the state that takes zero mandatory cuts in Tier 1 and Tier 2A, is being paid with federal tax dollars to conserve water. Just 2 days ago, on July 16, 2026, the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California, the NUBL, finalized a deal. The NUBL agreed to leave up to 200,000 acre-feet of water in Lake Mead that it was legally allowed to take. In exchange, the federal government will pay the NUBL $325 per acre-foot. That's a total payout of up to $65 million. That money comes from the 2022 Inflation Reduction Act. Federal tax money. Your money. Just think about this for a second. Arizona farmers watch their fields turn to dust because their water has been cut off by law. No payment, no appeal, just a shutdown notice. At the exact same time, a California water agency gets a check for millions of dollars to voluntarily not use water it was never at risk of losing anyway. This is the 1968 deal in action. It's not just a priority list for water. It's a financial system that rewards the powerful and punishes the vulnerable. It's the brutal, real-world consequence of being junior. The current operating guidelines, the ones that made this tier system, run out at the end of 2026. For months, the 7 basin states have been in this terrible fight, trying to negotiate the post-2026 rules that will control the river for decades to come. The negotiations have totally failed. The upper basin states, Colorado, New Mexico, Utah, and Wyoming, are fighting against the lower basin states, Arizona, California, and Nevada. They can't agree on who should cut, how much they should cut, or even how to measure the water that's actually there. With the states at a standstill, the federal government stepped in. This is where that 77.4% number comes from. The Bureau of Reclamation, forced to act, released its Draft Environmental Impact Statement, or DICE. In it, they suggested several alternatives. One was called the no-deal alternative. This is what the government would impose if the states simply can't agree. And it's an apocalypse for Arizona. Under this federal plan, the cuts would be based purely on the legal priority system. Senior rights are protected. Junior rights are just wiped out. The result? Arizona faces a cut of up to 77.4% of its Colorado River supply. Nevada, which also has junior rights, faces a 6% cut. The other 5 states, including California with its ironclad senior rights? 0, a 77% cut for Arizona. A 0% cut for California. That's what a strict, literal interpretation of the law of the river looks like on paper. It's the 1968 contract taken to its logical, catastrophic end. Brenda Berman is the general manager of the Central Arizona Project. She's the first woman to ever lead the organization, and she used to be the commissioner of the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation itself. She knows this system inside and out. Her reaction to the federal proposal was pretty blunt. The entire weight of the river cannot fall on Arizona, she said. That is not acceptable. Her words really get at the heart of Arizona's desperate struggle. The state knows its junior status. It doesn't deny the 1968 compromise. But it argues that forcing one state to take almost the entire hit of a basin-wide collapse isn't a sustainable solution. It's a death sentence. To stop this federal guillotine, the 3 lower basin states, Arizona, California, and Nevada, did something pretty amazing. They put aside their differences, and on May 1, 2026, submitted a joint, short-term counterproposal, a unified plan to save themselves from federal intervention. The plan commits the 3 states to collectively save an additional 3.2 million acre-feet of water between 2026 and 2028. It includes binding reductions of 1.25 million acre-feet for 2027 and 2028. It's a massive conservation effort, a desperate attempt to show the federal government they can handle the crisis themselves. But it's a temporary fix, a bridge designed to get them through 2028, buying time to negotiate a real, long-term plan. Whether it will be enough to stop the Bureau of Reclamation from imposing something like that 77% cut is still the single most important question in the American West today. To understand what's at stake for Arizona, you really have to grasp the physical reality of the Central Arizona Project. It's one of the greatest engineering achievements of the 20th century. a 336-mile concrete river flowing uphill. It starts at Lake Havasu, a reservoir on the border of California and Arizona. Huge pumping plants, some lifting water over 800 feet. Push the Colorado River's water into the aqueduct. It flows through tunnels dug in mountains, across vast stretches of desert, to literally deliver life to the doorsteps of Phoenix and Tucson. More than 5 million people, in an area that gets less than 8 inches of rain a year, rely on this single ribbon of water. Their taps, their jobs, their homes, their entire economy. It's all built on the idea that the cap will keep flowing. The project was mostly finished in 1993. For its first couple of decades, it worked perfectly. It completely changed central Arizona, fueling one of the fastest population booms in American history. It was Carl Hayden's dream come true. But it was a dream built on shaky ground, a foundation of junior water rights. Now, that dream is turning into a nightmare. The Tier 1 cut of 512,000 acre-feet was the first tremor. That water, which is enough for over 1 million homes, was mostly taken from Arizona's agricultural sector. Farmers who had built their lives and businesses on cap water were told the spigot was basically being turned off. It was a brutal economic shock. But it was also a strategic choice. The state's water managers sacrificed agriculture to protect the cities. They cut off the farms to keep the taps in Phoenix and Tucson running. It was a painful, but necessary, move. But what happens when the cuts get deeper? What happens when you hit a 77% reduction? You can't just cut off farms anymore. There just aren't enough farms left to cut. A cut that deep goes right into the heart of the municipal water supply. It means mandatory, drastic restrictions for every single home and business in the Phoenix and Tucson metro areas. It means telling new industries and new housing developments that there's simply no water for them. It means growth stops. It means retreat begins. Jennifer Pitt, who directs the Colorado River program at the Audubon Society, put it really clearly in July 2026. We're blowing through our reserve supplies and storage. Once that bottoms out, we don't have a choice but to start figuring out how to reduce uses of water across the watershed. That bottom is coming faster than anyone thought possible. The June 2028 projection of Lake Mead at 1,009 feet is that bottom. It's a world where the reservoir is so low that the elegant, tiered system of shared pain totally breaks down and is replaced by the raw, brutal hierarchy of water law. First come, first served. Senior rights holders get what little is left. Junior rights holders get what remains. Nothing. The story of the Colorado River feels like a story full of ghosts. The ghost of a wetter past, where planners in 1922 promised more water than the river ever actually had. The ghost of Lee's Ferry, that arbitrary line in the desert that now divides allies from enemies. And the ghost of Carl Hayden, the Arizona senator who made a choice in 1968. He secured his state's future by building a modern engineering marvel, but he practically mortgaged that future by signing away its security. The Central Arizona Project is his monument, a 336-mile ribbon of concrete that carries water, life, and a fatal legal flaw. Right now, that aqueduct is still flowing. Water is being pumped from Lake Havasu. It's moving south through the desert. But the amount is shrinking. The orders from the Bureau of Reclamation are for less and less. The water managers at the Central Arizona Water Conservation District, led by Brenda Berman, are in a fight for their lives, armed with counterproposals and legal arguments, and desperate pleas for everyone to share the burden. But they're fighting against a contract. They're fighting against a signature made 58 years ago. The dry soil of Arizona really shows you the power of a promise kept. The cap was built. The water did arrive. But the shrinking surface of Lake Mead shows you the price of that promise. A price written into law. A price that puts Arizona first in line for a future no one wants. To stand at the edge of the cap today, you see this magnificent machine, still running. But you also see a ghost. A 336-mile monument to a